Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick here for this episode of One Last Thing with co-host Slava Cooperstein. Slava, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Any week after a win is a good one.
You know, that's so true. Changes my whole outlook on life. What's happening with the Orioles here is great. What's happening with the Ravens so far is great in a relative sense. And we all know wealth is relative in this world. If you don't know that, it's an economic fact, by the way. That's true. But anyway, in terms of our happiness, not all things are right with the Baltimore Ravens in terms of injuries, but they're 2-0 and they're in a better position than a lot of the rest of the division anyway in terms of their current spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would credit a lot of the reasons for why we're 2-0 to our two coordinators.
There you go. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I think this is a great idea. This is all Slava, by the way. This isn't me. It's about talking about a review of the coordinators through two games and how things have gone right and wrong, particularly in the Cincinnati game, but in general as well. But Slava, why don't you start it off?
Yeah, so I guess we can start with the new guy, a kid on the block, Todd Monken, and what we've seen so far through 2 weeks. I think that week one we sort of saw what could be attributed to rust, but when you only have the 1 week to look at, you're kind of worried. Is this going to be something that we can get on track in a reasonable amount of time, especially with the Cincinnati Bengals looming? They play us tough every week. And, week two, I think, allayed a lot of people's concerns with that performance.
Yeah, I would agree. And not one under easy circumstances with a couple offensive linemen missing, losing Odell during the game, going back to two tight ends, which was to me a little bit strange that Kolar was inactive. I guess Kolar is a forced activation this week, which would be an interesting thing. But they did things a little differently. They obviously were without J.K. Dobbins, and they made do in terms of running backs there. But perhaps the most interesting thing to me was the way they were able to actually close out a game. And going in after week one, I was more concerned that I was entering the season and their ability to do that, because they really did not play good fourth quarter football. They were not able to run out of the clock. It was night and day in week two. They were able to turn that around, run extremely effectively, get the last 3:28 of the game done. And I thought Monken deserves a lot of the credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly couldn't help but think of you during the game, not just when we closed it out, which, obviously, the key to that is they absolutely know that what we want to do is run the ball. And what did we do? We ran the ball effectively, and we were smart about it. We didn't outthink ourselves. Monken didn't outthink himself. He said, who's going to be my toughest, running back picking up short yardage? That's going to be Gus Edwards.
Yeah. And it honestly, it was not only that. They did some very creative things to make running easier. And with their offensive line, a little bit banged up, that wasn't necessarily going to be as easy as it had been. Linderbaum is a big key to what they do on the run game. In past years, Ronnie Stanley really had been because of his mobility. And obviously he's more limited now as a player, given what's going on with his ankle. But they played a lot of unbalanced line. So in the last series of 6 plays, they had 5 unbalanced line plays. They had 5 others during the game where they either used a 6-man alignment or an unbalanced 5. And it was mostly unbalanced 5, trying to tuck in Morgan Moses to play effectively as a guard inside of Patrick McCary. So they would either move Moses to the left and stick him on the inside, or they would move McCary to the right and put him on the outside. And they were very effective at doing that, at pulling out of those formations in addition. So sometimes they had 4 left, meaning the center and 3 others left. And Zeitler, who'd be left on the right, would also pull. And so they would obviously the defenses formed up differently against that to start with, but it still provides you with a lot of mass in the middle there, primarily with Moses and the left guard Simpson. Being able to get a lot of push. Anyways, very impressed with how he changed the offensive line format to a lot of unbalanced line. The last time the Ravens did that very regularly was in the 2008 season when they had that great running game, and they had Willie Anderson, who was their right tackle. Not a particularly mobile guy, but a big elephant of a man, pretty decent pass protector, honestly, although he's not tremendously physical. And they moved him and tucked him in on the left side, and they kept him on the right side tucked in as well. And he was very effective in that role.
Yeah, and I think that's just smart scheming and smart coaching. It's sort of looking at the situation. Okay, you have two offensive linemen who are injured. How do we adapt to this situation to execute in the way that we want to execute? It's easy to go up there in the podium afterwards and say, oh, well, the guys just should have executed, but then you're not really taking responsibility for your job as a coach to put your players in a position to succeed. What you've just described is what Monken did to put his players in a position to succeed, to put Gus Edwards in a position to succeed. And of course, the use of Patrick Ricard to help close out the final few minutes of the game, I think was very timely and should allay concerns that Ricard doesn't have a role in this offense.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that obviously is a big monkey off the back, because good teams that get ahead a lot, that score a lot of points, and the Ravens are looking like they can be that kind of a team. They need to close out games. They need to find out ways. And the Ravens had a 10-point lead that I think anybody watching that game in the fourth quarter and watching Cincinnati move methodically down the field for their last touchdown on what turned out to be their last drive would have been concerned about the Ravens blowing another 10-point lead. And, Cincinnati the ball, they moved down the field, 3:28 to go. Oh, my God, here we go again. Is this a chance of they're going to give up the football in the fourth quarter, and it's going to be the Giants or the Dolphins or the Bills game of last year, and they're going to blow another lead? Well, it didn't happen because they basically ran that last 3:28 out like it was 2019. They did try and pass once, by the way, in those set of plays, and then Lamar just scrambled out of it for a run anyway. But I thought it was funny to have Matt Ryan doing the game, and he's screaming, I think they have to pass here. I think they have to be willing to throw the football at, and they never actually had to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Matt Ryan could look back on his own Super Bowl tape and learn some lessons from there. But I'm glad we operated the way that we operated, and you could just see it right out of the gate in the first drive. It was nearly an 8-minute drive, sustained throughout. Good mixture of run and pass. Other reason that I thought of you while I watched the game was the use of Devin Duvernay in exactly the way that you were hoping he'd be used. Some of the gadget stuff, jet sweeps, and all that, and just getting the different players involved, and not blinking once OBJ went down. OBJ goes down. Okay, I'm looking for Nelson Aguilar, right? And obviously, we have players. We've acquired players that allow us to do that. We've completely revamped the wide receiver room, understood, but it's still making use of the talent that we have. And having that as well as the situation dictate what our game plan is.
Yeah, I thought that was extremely well done. I'm very happy with the use of gadgetry. Still, in my mind, are overusing Flowers to a certain degree. I'm concerned about his ability to get through the season with as many touches as they're trying to generate for him as a runner, in particular, but also just on some of these outside wide receiver screen plays. He's great at making people miss. But when he doesn't make people miss, it's a big hit every time on those kind of plays. You got a lot of players screaming downhill at him. You got a lot of zone coverage concepts against the Ravens because of Lamar that cause everybody to be looking back downhill and trying to make a tackle. It's a rally to the ball kind of situation, and I think they need somebody other than Flowers to take a burden off that. And maybe that'll be Keaton Mitchell when he returns. Justice Hill already suffering from turf toe, so he's going to have to take a few less, obviously, and then hopefully Duvernay's back in the offense now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that kind of brings up a good question. We both seem to be pretty happy with what Monken has brought to the offense so far. But aside from maybe scaling back Zay Flowers' use or adjusting his use a little bit in that respect, what other things are you looking for in the coming weeks from Monken?
I would like him to develop to a greater extent the ability to open up the middle of the field for the tight ends and for receivers. I don't think that's been done as much as could be. We saw Andrews have some catches. A lot of those were short in the zone kind of catches. In fact, they were really at level 1, or sorry, not between level 2 and level 3, but at level 2. I'll say it. Andrews has lived in the seam. He's lived on the deep outs. He's lived in the deep middle. The key to doing that is getting more deep routes run where safety help is demanded. And I think one of the really nice things about the long ball to Flowers was that it's going to create a lot of forced double coverage for the safety on his side. I would think for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I would think so too. Even the toss to Aguilar, it just really suggests that the Ravens are going to defenses are going to have to defend the receivers deep and give considerable attention to that. I guess what I would add to that is I'd like to see some, particularly this week with the Colts, if the game goes as we would expect it to, I think, and pretty reasonably expect it to. If we're got a comfortable lead, I'd really like to see some reps, some passing reps go to some of the other tight ends or maybe Duvernay, and just get that sort of trust capital built up, because it happens every season. There's a play where your number 1, number 2, number 3 options are well covered, and you have to go to a guy who hasn't caught a ball in 5 weeks. Well, I think it behooves us to get everybody involved as much as possible. It's a long season. There are injuries.
I mean, for multiple reasons, it does, because you part of what Flowers is hopefully going to create for this offense is space where you can take advantage of single teams. But in the NFL, everybody is single teamed, and you have the ability to maybe double team one player if you'd like to, and still spy the quarterback in a situation like the Ravens have. Now, if that's the case, you have to make use of all of those one-on-one opportunities and the space created by your lid lifter. And you got to trust every single one of those outlets right now. Right now, it does not seem like Lamar Jackson and Likely, for example, are exactly in a great trust situation. Likely's getting some low-value targets, and I think it would really make sense for Monken to scheme some additional high-value plays to him in this next week. I'd say the same about Duvernay, by the way, but Duvernay completely earned his trust with the run, I think with the pass as well, but he did drop a ball, or a ball got to the ground somehow on a short out route. It was in about the 4 hole, meaning between the hashes and the right numbers early on in the game. I think the more you get some individual throws.
Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college ball, and the brand new cash out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit? Cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for a chance at a bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odd boost, same game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no strings attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use the promo code RAVENS on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code RAVENS to claim your cash bonus now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you with fast, chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. If you're too busy this fall to cook but want to make sure you're eating well, then get Factor. This is what I did. We were moving, packed up all my dishes, everything needed better meals. I signed up for Factor. It's best meals, probably the healthiest I've eaten in a month thanks to these Factor meals. Because with Factor, you can skip those extra trips to the grocery store and the chopping, the prepping, the cleanup, all while still getting flavor and the nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat, enjoy, and then get back to crushing your goals, which for me was trying to move. But now I can't. I need them for work at lunch every day. They're perfect. So this September, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. So head to factormeals.com/Ravens50 and use that code Ravens50 like I did to get 50% off. That's Ravens50 at factormeals.com/Ravens50 to get 50% off your Factor meals.
Goes to those guys, they start converting them into easy catches, then you'll see Lamar going to them in one-on-one situations.
Yeah, and I think that was a very difficult catch to make for Duvernay. I don't think he, it's a situation where he, it's not like Kolar dropping that pass that was directly, to him, should have been caught. I actually noticed, I think in both weeks, one of the earliest plays were passes to Likely. I don't know what you can make of that, if anything, but yeah, I mean, getting those guys involved and showing some different looks. If you look at the difference between weeks 1 and weeks 2, I think that we can reasonably expect that some version of that coming in weeks 3 and 4.
All right. Well, how about we flip it over to the defense in terms of what's happened there, and this is really your show, I guess. I want you to tell me, what have you been really excited about in terms of McDonald's defense this season?
I'm really thrilled with McDonald going back to last year. I mean, this is now 4 games in a row where McDonald has defensively owned the Bengals with his scheme. Joe Burrow and that high octane passing game really hasn't made much headway at all in any of the 4 games, and it doesn't seem. And obviously, granted, the Bengals are dealing with some issues of their own. Joe Burrow has an injury; he can't quite step into his passes. But you can only put so much on that. If he's healthy enough to play, and he has 2 world beaters at receiver, you would think that they could get a little bit more done than they have. But they really, haven't been able to make a dent in his scheme. And I just think it speaks to McDonald isn't saying at any given moment, this is this team's identity, which is another way of saying this is the identity I want to carve out as a coach. We're gonna rush the passer every time, or we're gonna do X, Y, or Z. His identity that he's carving out is our identity is winning, and that's what matters to him, and it shows in his adaptability week in and week out.
I absolutely agree, by the way, with that I think also it's something that's occasionally unfairly mapped to former defensive coordinators. Like Dean Pease and Wink Martindale had their own normal biases with regard to Pease really liking to be more passive and allow the quarterback to make mistakes, and Martindale being more of a forced error defensive coordinator where he'd like to make the quarterback uncomfortable in multiple ways. But certainly with a bias towards pressure schemes. I don't think McDonald is very extreme in either direction. I think that he's both of them, by the way, the previous coordinators, both very adaptable. The Ravens really haven't had a bad defensive coordinator in their entire existence. Some people would say Madison was bad. But if you really think Madison is a bad defensive coordinator, you don't know what a bad defensive coordinator is.
Right.
And Wink, probably the 3rd greatest defensive coordinator in Ravens history behind Marvin Lewis and Rex Ryan, and it would be close probably with him and Ryan in terms of deciding who was really important. But with McDonald, I think they do really have somebody special here. He's very adaptable on a game-to-game basis. I'm going to go back to what you said about the Bengals. The Bengals in 2021 against Wink. Obviously it was a time of DoorDash corners, so they had a lot of problems. But that's what we got right now too. Let's face it. We got some corners that are less than ideal. But the Wink allowed 941 yards, or Wink's defense has allowed 941 yards to Burrow in that season, and in the 4 games since, Burrow really hasn't had a single passer rating of as high as 100, and he's forced Burrow into this underneath game when it is exactly plays to minimize the weaknesses of the Ravens corners. And Burrow this last game, you may have seen this or not, but he had 7 attempts of 15 plus yards. He was 0 for 7 with an interception for a 0.0 passer rating. So, I think you probably heard most of that in terms of how it's gone, because it's a lot of it's parroting or expanding on some of the things you said earlier. But what is it about McDonald, some other things maybe that you've liked besides his impact on Joe Burrow?
Well, so I mean, McDonald's dealt with some serious injury issues. I mean, and to be fair, Monken has as well. But McDonald said, "All right, how are we going to, make lemonade out of these lemons?" We have extremely, maybe the corners that we're trotting out there aren't particularly the best, the best in terms of, covering or trailing receivers, but they are extremely physical. Okay, so we're going to make use of that. We're going to have them be very physical with the receivers, kind of beat them up, sort of Patriots Rams style. And although, not in today's NFL, right? But we're going to have we're going to play an extremely physical game in the secondary, and the safeties are going to help them out over the top. We're going to put them in a position to succeed. And go ahead.
I absolutely agree. And the fact that the safeties were over the top really played into the hands, because, obviously if they're great downhill players and you want to be looking at the quarterback anyway, and they're comfortable doing that and comfortable playing some off coverage, all those throws to the outside basically negated the weaknesses of those corners. And, you're not asking to play on an island, and you're sacrificing something in the run game theoretically to do it. And that's also something that the Bengals didn't take advantage of. They stayed with their identity as a passing team. They ran the ball 15 times for 66 yards. That's 4.4. They had a little bit of success, but they didn't really capitalize on that. I guess some, they would point to game situation, but I think the game was close enough. They certainly could have run more than they did.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that the defensive game plan just showed extreme patience and belief in what McDonald was, what the plan was. And even when the Bengals did, score a touchdown, it didn't immediately, signal to them, we need to change everything. Look, T. Higgins is going to body up most DBs in the NFL. That doesn't mean the result does not mean that the process was not working, right? Eventually in the NFL, your offenses are going to break through. They have star players, and and sometimes it is bend but don't break, but you have to believe in it. And McDonald didn't panic, and so I think that it really shows his maturity as a coordinator, and shows that his players really buy into what he's selling.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's hard to overstate how disadvantaged the Ravens were in this game. And maybe in a sense, it's a case where the Bengals were the perfect opponent for week 2, given Burrow's physical problems also, because I think he was having a problem stepping into throws even before the injury, which happened obviously right at the end of the game, apparently got worse. But I don't think he was stepping into his throws very well. If you look at the Geno Stone interception, it was a case of there was just not enough velocity on that ball, as well as Geno Stone read it the entire way. If you're a zone defense against Joe Burrow right now, and I think that every defensive coordinator in the league is going to see that, boy, we got to play lots of cover 2 shell because we want to take away the deep pass from this team. You have forever to get to the football because Joe Burrow is lofting up what are basically, long range artillery shells, a much lower velocity thing than the kind of line drives or laser shots you see from a Joe Flacco or even a Kyle Bowler in the past, who I think either one of them might have completed the pass to Higgins for the touchdown instead of having it be intercepted by Stone.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely good timing from that perspective. But, on the flip side, we don't have, Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Williams, our top 2 players in the secondary. And Rock Ya-Sin hasn't gotten that many reps yet. He had a great play this game for sure.
Wasn't that great?
Oh, it was beautiful. And just so physical and really showed that I think it's a well-coached play too. It's sort of sort of showing you don't give up on the play just because the receiver seems to have gotten the catch. Just play through the whistle. And boy, are we seeing the results of some good coaching, I think, on both sides.
That play is immediately on the highlight reel for the defense for the entire season, just slinging Chase to the ground and separating him from the football in the process. Just an absolute thing of beauty. And it was. I'm very optimistic about what's happened in 2 weeks. I thought they did exactly what they should have also against Stroud in terms of allowing unforced errors to occur to him. And even when Stroud really didn't put the ball in jeopardy a lot. He did other things that weren't great. He got stripped and wasn't particularly good on long passes. But what the Ravens have been able to accomplish this year with a very limited pass rush and now Owe out and a very limited set of corners and still preventing big passing plays, remarkable through 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing that I'm looking forward to in coming weeks is, the players who will be coming back, who we know are coming back soon, hopefully, Bowser, Malik Ham, ostensibly Marlon because he wasn't put on IR. Just being careful about sort of managing their being included in the game plan and also just keeping an eye on that rotation in the defensive line. I think that's going to be really key. I think we may even need, to take a look at potential free agents for the defensive line just to sort of keep people fresh.
You're specifically talking about like edge players, right? In particular.
Yeah, I would say all along the defensive line, but yes, primarily edge players.
Okay, because they haven't had that injury yet on the defensive line, unless you know something I don't. But that'd be bad.
No, nothing yet. Just looking at like how things have played out the past years in terms of Matabike hitting a little bit of a wall, and us no longer having Calais Campbell. Obviously, with the health of Michael Pierce and all of that, we do have replacement for some of those snaps. I'm just hoping that everybody can hold up.
No, that's a very legitimate point. Slava, always a pleasure to do this show with you. Why don't we tell folks where they can find you online and talk football with you?
I'm on Twitter at Slava Cooperstein. That's SLAVAKUPERSTEIN.
All right. Outstanding. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a film study short, hit me up. Had some great short ideas come in just this week. Really looking forward to them in terms of what's going on. I'm not going to give them away, but I really appreciate people continuing to come through with new ideas. Please hit me up. I'll get back to you. DMs are always open on Twitter. For Slava Cooperstein, this is Ken McCusick saying goodbye, and we'll talk to you next week on One Last Thing.